to me, I just don't like the word like, are you religious or like religion? Or I was uncomfortable. I didn't want to stand up for myself or for other people. I just felt like the weight of the world was like on my shoulders. Romans 8:28 says, he works all things for the good of those who love him. All right, welcome in, you guys. Welcome to the Talk More with Lore podcast. If you have not listened to this podcast yet, my name is Lauren. And on this podcast, we talk about really everything. It's a newer podcast, so I've talked a lot about my nutrition and weightlifting journey on here. But I really want to make this podcast kind of like a little bit of everything. I want to make it... I don't know. I just have this passion in my heart right now to make this podcast like a place where we talk about real life stuff, like real problems. I want to make it a place where we get vulnerable with each other and really just like be open and honest about real stuff. And not that nutrition and fitness isn't important. I just feel like there's so much else that I do want to share about my life and share about just things that matter to me and things that I've learned along the way. So yeah, I'm just excited because this is episode number 4. And I think this is just going to be the perfect opportunity to kind of shift a little bit into some topics that have been on my mind. And then just get some feedback from you guys and see what you guys think. But okay, so we are starting with, I think on the last episode, I started the new thing where we talk about something silly and goofy that's happened just to catch you guys up to speed on my life. And I actually had a couple of things I wanted to talk about, but I'll just choose one and then save the other one for the next episode. But just, I guess, a quick update. I got back from Mexico last week. I went on a brand trip, actually. It was the most fun trip I have ever been on, you guys. I feel so blessed to have been able to go on this trip. So basically, it was Happy Seeker Club. Is this like this girl Gabby basically created this brand where she leads a lot of retreats for like moms and daughters and things like that. But this is actually her first like brand trips, specifically catered towards fitness influencers. And so she asked, she like DM'd a couple of people and got us all to go on this trip that was sponsored by 2 brands. And so basically we were able to stay in this like super nice villa in Mexico, and it was all paid for, but we had to post an exchange. And so I actually just got back from that trip last week, and it was just honestly like very out of my comfort zone because I didn't really know anybody on the trip. Just like a few girls that I recognized from Instagram and had followed for a while, but it ended up being such a cool trip, you guys. Like I was able to see so much, like my eyes were just opened to all the people that lived in Puerto Escondido where we stayed. And we did like sound baths, we went surfing, we like gave back to the community, and we did like a trash pickup. We did, we saw dolphins, which was highlight of my life. It was so cool, you guys. We like went on this boat, and it was like a whale watching tour guide, but we hadn't seen anything for like probably 45 minutes, and we were getting ready to head back. And then all of a sudden this whole sea of dolphins like came right beside us and started like twirling and everything. It was insane. So I'm just feeling very like grateful this week, coming back, like getting back into my routine has been so nice. But I'm honestly just feeling like overwhelmed with gratitude that this is my life and that I was able to do that. Like that is just insane. So that's my kind of life update for you guys. Not really anything silly and goofy yet, but we'll get into it a little bit later. But the meat of this episode, I actually wanted to talk about my faith and mental health and all things just how I kind of deal with maybe life problems, or like my personal experience with faith and personal experience with anxiety, because that's actually a question that I got a lot on my Instagram when I asked the question poll the other week. It was people wanting to just learn more about my faith and just like maybe how I deal with things in life. And so, I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of share that. And I never want to push my faith on anybody. I never want to shove it down anyone's throat. I try to kind of keep it neutral on my Instagram, to where it's like I'm definitely sharing personal experiences, but I'm not, trying to make anybody feel a certain way when I do share it, because I definitely don't want to turn anybody off from that. But I think it's also powerful when you get to share your own experience with your following, because I think it also just helps you get to know me a little bit better. And I just also want to provide some really practical tips for you guys on maybe like things that have worked for me, and how like I've kind of introduced my faith into like this whole mental health movement that's been going on in the past few months, just in our culture. And and then I've been writing down thoughts. That's why I'm looking down at my computer if you are watching this. But I know that you guys, a lot of you do follow me for my health and wellness tips, but I also just want to really share about just my faith and like different things that maybe come along with wellness that might not technically be like gym oriented, and just want to kind of talk about real things like dating in Nashville and being single and like all these different things that I went through that I feel like are just fun to talk about. And definitely want your feedback on anything that you guys want me to talk about, because I'm an open book. So let's get into it. I figured it would be a good idea to kind of start with like my personal story and give you some background on who I am and like where my faith stands now as opposed to where it was growing up. So I grew up in a very, very Christian household. Both of my parents actually worked in ministry all my life. So my dad was actually a pastor for a couple years, like when I was little. And then he stopped doing that and now works as more of a consultant for other pastors. So both of my parents have always worked in ministry. They've never done anything other than that. And so growing up, we were honestly just like not allowed to do a lot of things. I feel like high school was just a little bit hard in that way because I am the youngest child. And so when I was in sixth grade, both of my siblings were out of the house and it was just me and my parents. And so in a lot of ways, I felt a little bit suffocated because I didn't have siblings there with me to be like, talk to them about things or, maybe get away from mom and dad for a little bit. I just felt very suffocated in all the ways that you can imagine. I felt like there was just this standard of like perfection that I had to hit and this like relationship with God that I had to have that had to look a certain way, or anytime I was in trouble, that's kind of like how like faith was kind of weaponized as a scare tactic in a lot of ways. And so growing up, it was hard for me to really understand like what was right from wrong in terms of like what I believe to be true as opposed to like what the church said or like what my parents said to be true, if that makes any sense. And so coming into adulthood, I really struggled with that. So like in high school, I felt like it was a lot of just like rebellion, honestly, and like wanting to like run away from God and wanting to do my own thing because I was tired of being told what to do. And then going into college, I do feel like college really helped me become my own person in a lot of ways because obviously I wasn't sitting there with my parents all day. I was apart from just like my hometown and the church we grew up in. And I was kind of able to try out new churches that maybe intrigued me because I wanted to go, or I didn't go to church for a couple months there where I literally just like did my own thing and honestly just kind of like discovered who God was to me apart from all of that. And so I think college really helped with honestly just like figuring it out. And I think like that was scary because I don't know. I always like it was hard to kind of break away from like, okay, I'm actually my own person now. Like this faith doesn't have to look a certain way and it's not supposed to be a set of rules. And that's actually something that I kind of struggled with, like even moving into post college as an adult, coming into the workforce, like just I had a thought and then I lost it. What was I gonna say? Like basically your faith is what you want it to be. And yeah, it's not a set of rules. And people will ask me like, oh, are you religious? And I also struggle with that because I'm like, no, because I feel like religion, it means that you are confined to this circle of beliefs and circle of expectations. And that's not really what I believe either. I feel like God is so big and he's all around us and speaks to every person so differently. And there's freedom in that. And as opposed to looking at Christianity or religion or whatever as a set of rules, it should be looked at this like opportunity to just be free and to be who you are and to be like, obviously there's consequences for doing bad things in life. But to me, I just don't like the word like, are you religious or like religion? Because it's just not, it's just a turnoff for me because I feel like that's probably how people looked at me and my family growing up. But I just, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is I feel like I found a lot of freedom in just believing in Jesus and believing in God and like kind of looking at God as a more whole encompassing being that's literally all around us and like just surrendering my life to him in a way of like, I believe like who I am is deep rooted in knowing that God is orchestrating my life. Like he is sitting at the head of the table and is doing what he's going to do no matter what happens. And he's going to use trauma and hardships for good. And so that's kind of how I stand on, or maybe how it's shifted over the past couple of years. And so I'll kind of fast forward to Colorado. So when I got into, so like post-grad, moved to Nashville, got into fitness, and honestly, like starting my business was like shaped me in so many crazy ways because I've never done anything so risky in my life. Like I've never quit my job and worked for myself before. And I'm also at default a very people-pleasing type of person. And so being a business owner really like grew me up in a lot of ways. And with that caused a lot of like growing pains where I was uncomfortable. I didn't want to stand up for myself or for other people. I didn't really know boundaries. I didn't know how to balance work and personal life. I didn't know what was too much, what was too little. I was overworking myself. And that really, it was just hard, you guys. Like I was single and I was like, I just felt like the weight of the world was like on my shoulders. I felt like, you know, all of the responsibility of my clients was on my shoulders. If someone was upset at me, it like rocked my whole world. If I wasn't on my shit and stayed disciplined, like I was going to slip and lose a client, or I was going to slip and lose my Instagram account or something. And so that, like, I feel like I was just in this bubble of like training, trying to build my side business. And it was just a lot. I got really burnt out very quickly, and I've talked about that in previous episodes. But a key kind of moment in my life was when I actually like took this trip to Colorado. It was a solo trip, and I've never traveled alone before. Like I've never taken a solo trip before. And I was kind of to the point where I was burnt out with work, and I was like, okay, I need to step away and kind of like figure myself out right now, because I was kind of at the point where I didn't really know what was next, and I felt like I couldn't really hear from God like in Nashville. Because also another thing about my job was like I was kind of glued to the city because I couldn't leave, because if I left, that meant I didn't get paid. Like my income was solely reliant on being physically here training clients. And so a lot of my, so I don't like to use the term my anxiety because I don't want to be defined by that, but a lot of my internal world, my internal anxiety has never really been a thing in my life up until this point, is what I'm trying to say. Like, this is kind of when I discovered, like, okay, this is like something I've never felt before. It was like a shock. I was like, I don't know how to deal with these feelings of anxiety because I've never really dealt with it before. I've never really dealt with anxious thoughts or stress. Honestly, I've never really been like a super stressed person. I am a 9 on the Enneagram, so like I'm a peacemaker. Like I've always just been a very like peaceful person, and so it just kind of scared me. And but it really shaped me. And so I took this trip to Colorado, and it was kind of crazy, you guys. Like, it was a solo trip. I had no plans. I literally like stayed in this cabin. Luckily, my mom had a friend that had a cabin that let me stay there. And so it was like a free place to stay, but I had no plans. I just like traveled and went hiking and went to dinner by myself. And it was a crazy time. And I am so grateful for that trip because I feel like it really built my confidence in a lot of ways. I think during this time too, I was like, honestly, just like going through it with like boys, and like I was single and I didn't really know, like I had this desire to like meet my person and be married, but like that just was not happening for me. And so I read this book. It's called The Next Right Thing by Emily Freeman. And the whole book is kind of about like next steps in life, like knowing when to take, or like, how do you know what the next step is? Like, how do you know if it's from God, or like, how do you know if it's the right thing or not the right thing? And the biggest takeaway I got from that book, and the reason I read it, is because I was having a really hard time deciding like what to do next with my life, in terms of like, I was like, do I train in person still? Do I go online? Like, I don't know what to do. I had a lot of reservations about going on Instagram full time because, as we all know, social media can have its pros and cons. And I had definitely had reservations with that. But the biggest takeaway I got from that book was how there really isn't like a wrong decision to make, and how God is so good and so abundant and graceful that even if you do make the wrong decision, which again, I do this because there isn't one, but even if you do, he will guide you back. And that just gave me so much freedom because I put a lot of pressure on myself to like do the right thing and wanted to be like, I don't know. I just put a lot of pressure on myself. And so reading that book really opened my eyes to a lot of things in terms of just like letting go and accepting that I was experiencing these anxious feelings, and knowing that it was just a season, and knowing that this too shall pass. And that really resonated with me. And so coming out of that trip, I shifted over to social media, as we all know. And the rest is history. So I'm going to share with you guys a couple mental health tips that I have learned along the way. So there's like 3 things that I've kind of taken with me over the past few months. And the first is that I'm trying to find things to do just for the fun of it. So like, instead, I'm a very much like a self-betterment type of person. Like if I am not like doing something on my to-do list, or if I'm not journaling or bettering myself in some way, or I'm not like, I don't know. What I'm trying to say is I get very uncomfortable with just sitting and doing nothing, or like Watching TV, I don't know how to do that. I can't remember the last time I've watched TV. It's very hard for me to just do something for the enjoyment of it, because I also feel this pressure to like constantly take my phone out and like film it because that's my work. Or I don't know, like I feel like when people ask me about my hobbies, I'm like, I don't really know what they are, because for the longest time I feel like working out and being active was a hobby of mine, but now that it's my job, I feel like I really need to find something that, I don't know, just helps me completely disconnect from everything. And I'm really to be vulnerable with you, like don't know what that is yet, and I'm learning that right now. And so yeah, whether that's like reading a fictional book, or whether that's doing yoga, or I don't know, like it's just hard. I don't know like how to not do something active, I guess. Like, and I feel like I am artsy, but I don't, anyways, that's one thing I'm learning. And that's something that is really like important when you think about mental health. And something I've actually also learned from my therapist is there's 4 kind of like pillars of a person and what you can do. So there's like thinking, there's doing, there's being, there's one thing I'm missing. I'm missing one of them. It's like thinking, doing, being. There's one other one that's, I can't remember what it is, but basically, being is that last one that is very uncomfortable for me. And some people are better at different things than others, but, thoughts and taking them captive. So one thing that it talks about in scripture is taking your thoughts captive, because I think when we think about mental health and anxiety and things like that, a lot of times scripture is like so aligned with like the things that we talk about in our culture today. And that's when it's kind of a good practice for me to invite the Holy Spirit into those moments of maybe like a realization you have about like the human experience of just going through trauma or something. Taking your thoughts captive has been such a verse that has stood out to me. And I can't remember exactly which book of the Bible that I believe Paul talks about this, but basically just like catching yourself in the moment, whether it be negative self-talk, or whether it be like having the urge to gossip about a friend, or maybe it's, I don't know, just like negative thinking in general. I'm honestly very proud of myself, because I feel a difference when I like catch myself in the middle of doing that, and I'll stop, I'll put my phone down, and I'll go out and I'll go do something. Like I'll go get an acai bowl, or go on a walk, or call a friend, and just stop the spiraling thoughts. And that has really helped me. And honestly, just like praying about it. I think another thing that I have learned, I guess is my second point, is like praying is equally as important as listening. So like instead of presenting all your requests to God, which is definitely something that we should all be doing, and just like talking to God about your anxieties, because in scripture it talks about casting your anxieties on the Lord because he cares for you. On the other side of the coin is really just like sitting in silence and listening to what God is saying in that moment, because a lot of times God will speak to me like when I'm walking or when I'm not doing anything, like, and it's okay to just like be silent and not feel the need to figure everything out, if that makes sense. Like sit and write out to-do lists, and be frantic about it all. The third thing that really stuck with me like during the season was that nothing passes through our sovereign God. So God is sovereign, meaning nothing that happens to you goes unnoticed or not. Like everything in life happens for a reason. And I know that sounds cliche, but it is so true that anytime, this is actually kind of funny. I'm drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper right now, and I feel like everyone like gives these a bad rap because obviously I'm a fitness queen and this is a diet soda that is supposed to give you cancer or something. But I just want to let you guys know that I drink these once in a while. And there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like there's so many videos of these like on my For You page now that are like, if you eat like ground beef or something, like you're actually eating more. There's like something in this. There's some like chemical in this diet soda that also is in like meat. And it was like, so basically like your body's processing these chemicals anyways when you're eating meat. So like this is like really the least of your worries. And you won't get cancer unless you're drinking like 20 of these a day. So that's my 2 cents on that. And it helps with weight loss. If you're really struggling to lose weight or with food cravings, it really helps with that. So pro tip. I mean, I'm not encouraging it, but I'm saying that it's nice once in a while, you know? But back to what I was saying about how nothing happens in life without God's permission. And sometimes when the Lord is pressing you, it's because he's trying to show you something. And I think I learned that lesson a lot when I was single because I have never really been a single girly before. I've always had relationships and I've always been in relationships. I've always been talking to somebody. It was so uncomfortable for me to sit in just like my loneliness and sit in the discomfort of not knowing what was next. And I really had to lean on my faith during that season. And I think that that season of life really shaped me into who I am today and just like my faith and what it is today. And Romans 8:28 says, he works all things for the good of those who love him, speaking to God's sovereignty and everything that happens in our lives, even struggles with mental health. It's all within his knowledge and plan. It's comforting truth that even when life feels chaotic, he's still in control. I just thought that was really powerful and wanted to throw that in there because I do think that it's just my faith in mental health, whatever you want to call it. It really just keeps me sane knowing that God really is working for your good and like getting to sleep at night knowing like, okay, I know that this season really sucks, but also I know that there is a season for everything. In scripture, I believe it's Ecclesiastes. It talks about how there's a season for laughing, for crying, for dancing, and just like knowing that God's really going to use whatever you're going through for a greater purpose. And then the last thing I kind of talked about here was how God isn't black and white. So knowing that there was like this video I actually watched not too long ago about how making the right and wrong decisions, kind of going along with that book I read, is there really like isn't a wrong decision to make because God, if you think about your life, like you think about a playground. Oh my God. Sorry, it's happening again. So if you think about your life, you think about this playground where God's just kind of allowing you to try different things and figure out what you like, what you don't like. And a lot of times God will speak to you very quietly. So like he's not going to be in your face like, Lauren, you need to do this, or, you know, and that's why it's so important to get quiet and to really listen, because there's only been I think a few distinct times in my life where I really felt like God was so clearly speaking to me. There was one time where I was on the treadmill, actually. This was like sometime last year. I was at the gym and I was just having one of those days, you guys. Like I was having like a mental breakdown about just my life, and men and my job and like all, it just felt like when it rains, it pours. I was just having one of those days. And I was like running and I just started to sob, honestly. And everyone was probably looking at me, but I just let it flow out. And I was just kind of crying out to God. I was like, why is this happening? I was so upset. And I just felt like God so clearly spoke to me and was like, keep going. Just keep going. Like, do not give up. I know it sucks right now, but I promise if you keep going, like, it's going to be okay. And I'm going to show you a way, and I'm going to reveal this plan I have. And that really stuck with me. And I think every other time in my life, it's been like a really like quiet nudge of like different decisions, or maybe it's just like a peaceful sensation I have over my body if I'm really trying to make a decision between something or one thing or another. Just like having an overwhelming sense of peace about something is a lot of times God, because God is the Prince of Peace, and he has a way of just showing us his nature by honestly just our emotions and the way that we feel about things. So being still and quiet to listen to God rather than presenting your requests to God is something that's super important and something I'm learning. And I think the last thing that I wrote down was not holding my agenda so tightly. So in that sense of just being loose with it, being loose with your intentions in life, being loose with your plans and everything, because God can so quickly just flip a switch on you. And a lot of times all the time it is for the best. So not being so upset about things when they happen. Like, instead of being upset, this is one thing that stuck with me. This sermon I was listening to about how instead of asking God why, ask him what's next. Because anything that happens to you, it's for a reason, and God is sovereign, and that happened to you for a reason. So accept that it happened and ask him what's next. Because I think that is where the power lies, is what you do with the cards that you're dealt in life. But that's pretty much all I've got for my little faith story. I would love to hear any feedback on this. And this is kind of like a broad overview of just some tips on how I kind of deal with things and lessons I've learned along the way. But I would love to hear anything else that you guys want me to talk about, or topics that you want me to dive deeper into when it comes to faith or mental health. But other than that, I'm so grateful that you were here and listened, and I will catch you guys on the flippity flip.